Hi, I'm Danielle Perez, an executive editor at Berkeley, and I'm May Cobb's editor here. And I'm here to talk with her about her new book, The Hunting Wives, which goes on sale May 18th. Everyone at Berkeley is so incredibly excited to share this book with readers, and I'm so happy to be here with you today, May. To get started, can you tell us just a little bit about the book?
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to be here with you too, Danielle. And yeah, so The Hunting Wives is a thriller and it follows Sophie, who is a young mother and wife. And Sophie has grown weary of her fast paced, glamorous magazine job in Chicago. And she's longing for like a slowed down, idyllic life. So she moves her husband and adorable child to Mapleton, Texas, which is a fictional town in rural Texas. And when she gets there, it's all fun and games at first, and they go berry picking and whatnot. But then she finds herself really bored and restless. And she soon crosses paths with this alluring socialite named Margot Banks. And Margot is sort of the mean girl ringleader of a secret clique known as the Hunting Wives. And Sophie is soon swept up into their world of late night partying, skeet shooting, and getting up to pretty bad behavioral things. And so soon she finds her life spiraling out of control, and there's a murder. And I don't want to give any more away than that, but that's pretty much it.
Great. Well, these characters are so devious and so compelling. What was your inspiration for the characters and for this story?
I mean, a real quick backstory for the inspiration is I was driving on the country roads with my mother, who still lives up in East Texas. And she told me about when she was in high school, there was a clique of rich guys. And on the weekends, they would invite people out to go to something called the hunting party. And they would basically just go into the woods and park their gigantic cars, because this was in the 60s. And they would sit, and drink beer and sit on the hood of their cars and shoot, and sometimes shoot at rabbits and other little animals. And my mom did not know that's what was going down, by the way. So she was kind of shocked. And when she was telling me this, I thought, wow, I think there's a story there, because that could easily go so wrong. And I I decided I wanted to bring it up to modern times, and I wanted to make it all female, because I've always been very interested in female power dynamics and twisty female friendships. Those are the kind of books I love to read, and the movies I love to watch, like Mean Girls and Heathers and, you know, Ruth Ware novels. And it just came to me kind of quickly, this sort of villainous Margot Banks and her gang of followers. And I knew that I wanted someone from the outside, you know, to get brought into their world and watch and see what happens. So that's
Mhm.
pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, the protagonist, Sophie, what's so interesting about her is she subverts that kind of naive main character meets the troublemaker trope that we can often see in suspense. She's not like magically swept up into this world, this kind of nest of vipers of women. She actively chooses to participate. Did you always know that that's who she was going to be?
That is such a really great question. I've never consciously thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right. It wasn't like she was hoodwinked into the bad behavior. She did go along with a lot of it willingly. Even if she was a bit reluctant at first, she was pretty quickly sucked in. And I think so. I think even if it wasn't conscious, I definitely wanted the novel to ask the question, what if I followed my darkest desires versus repressing them? What would that look like? And I always knew I did want to write a book about a life that becomes unraveled. And because I thought it would be fun to do that from like the safety of my own couch and keyboard. And so yeah, and I wanted Sophie to also own her own desire. Like her husband is perfect, and there's no logical reason she should be doing these things, but she's very complicated. And as you sort of encouraged me to do during the editorial process. We really developed, her backstory and maybe what motivates her decisions and compulsions. Because, you can have it all, but then still be unsatisfied. And I think we see a lot, in film and in novels, like, if men go into infidelity or whatever bad behavior, it's like, oh wow, that's interesting. And it's they just seem to have the freedom to do that. Whereas if women do it, they're just instantly bad. And it's like the question of the whole, a writer friend of mine termed it unlikable mom. But I wanted her to be very human and real. So I hope that
Yeah,
answers.
she definitely she is, and it's true that women characters should be allowed to be as complex, bad, interesting as male characters have always been, which I think you've done so brilliantly in this novel. And now for a quick lightning round of book-related questions. Are you ready? The
Yeah.
last book,
Yeah.
the last book that made you cry.
Um, Well, it's actually a thriller, and it's Riley Sager's Survive the Night, and it's coming out this summer, and I was lucky enough to read an early copy. And it's so character driven that I got emotionally involved, which is, pretty compelling for thrillers.
Definitely. What is the book currently on your nightstand?
It's another advanced reader copy of a book that comes out in a few weeks, and it's Will Dean's The Last Thing to Burn, and it is phenomenal, and everyone should read it.
That's great. What is the last book that you gifted to a friend?
Okay, that is The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Lori Elizabeth Flynn, which is another dark, twisty take on toxic female friendships. It's exquisite.
And the book that you wish you could read for the very first time?
I think I'd have to say Maria Simple's Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Because it's so
Yeah,
fun.
that's a classic. That is really fun.
Yeah.
And one last question, since we have an audience of librarians here, it's important to ask, what have libraries meant to you?
Really, they've been my refuge my whole life, especially in the long, hot Texas summers. As a little girl, it was always a good place to go and escape the heat. And I've always been such a bookworm. And then probably more importantly, as I was trying to develop myself as a writer and really study the craft and read as much as possible, it's you could go broke trying to buy every book you want to read. And so I found like the hold system at the libraries and being able to check them out, and it was like my Netflix, and it really helped me grow, I think, as an author, getting access to books that I wouldn't have been able to get access to otherwise.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, May. Thank you so much for your time today. And we at Berkeley, we just cannot wait for readers to meet the Hunting Wives on May 18th. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thanks, everybody.